Welcome to episode 11 of the Madvertising Podcast with Adam Singer and Chris Gadek. Today, we have an exciting guest. We have the founder and co-CEO of Hightouch, Kashish Gupta. Kashish, good to see you again.
Chris, great to see you again as well. Thanks for having me.
Yep. And so with Kashish today here, Adam and I, audience folks, we're going to be digging deep into stacks and data and how marketers use them in their day-to-day and how marketers in 2023 are winning using the most modern tools at their disposal and saying goodbye to a couple things that were popular a few years back, but are no longer in practice. So with that said, I'd like to kick us off, but for the purposes of our pod, given that we are going to be talking about technical stuff, I'd love to get the origin story. Kashish, you have one of the most impressive B2B companies out there right now, and everybody is eating it up like hotcakes. So kind of how did you make that transition? Kind of tell us about your background. We'd love to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, super happy to. I started the company right out of college, really. So I moved to San Francisco in 2018. I had been a VC for a short stint before that and had really just seen like what good operators looked like. I felt like I had the pattern and I wanted to bring that to, at that time, a different industry. So we've pivoted since then. And I've been very fortunate to meet both of my co-founders. They were both early engineers at Segment. Segment is one of the original customer data platforms. And through that journey, through meeting a lot of the other Segment founders, we were able to get a lot of context on the customer data space. And really the origin story of Hightouch all originates with customer feedback that we got as we were doing exploration into marketing. So we talked to some of the largest brands, the Nikes, Hulu's, Turner Medias of the world, the Walmarts of the world, and we asked them, hey, you bought a CDP, you bought something like Segment, how is that going for you? And almost every single time they said that Segment is not my CDP anymore. It's my database. It's my Snowflake or my GCP, my BigQuery. And that is where I think of my customer data platform. That's where I build my customer 360. So if those words don't mean much to the audience, that's okay. But really what's kind of the shift that we noticed, contradictory to what we believed because we had all had that Segment background, is that the world is changing. We're now using databases as our customer 360. And marketers need access to that. We saw a really large hunger for marketing to gain access to that database, to be able to operate on that data, run personalization campaigns on that data, to be able to mention the products people were reviewing rather than just their first name using that data. But there was a gap because the data team had that data and the marketing team didn't. So we set out to solve that problem. We iterated multiple times and finally around end of 2020 launched what is Hightouch today, which is the #1 data activation platform. We simply help get data from databases to SaaS tools so that you as a marketer can run your marketing using the data your company already has.
So just to kind of unpack a CDP for some of our non-super technical marketers on chiming in right now. So CDP does 4 things, right? It does the collection data, data collection, it does the analysis, it organizes it for you, and then the activation piece is really where you're jumping in and where the biggest points of friction were, right?
Exactly, the activation piece and the segmentation piece.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and oftentimes we would see marketers say, hey, I know there's data in my company. I just need a visual UI for me to be able to operate on that data, to be able to filter it and run my campaigns. And a CDP would build you a whole new database, just like you mentioned, collect that new data for you, build that database for you, and give you the UI on top of it. But that means the CDP was coming with no data as a starting point, and you were sending it all of your data from scratch, which is slightly nonsensical. You have a database in your company, your data team maintains it, and we give you that visual segmentation UI on top of that database. Perfect for marketers. We have over hundreds of marketers at Warner Music Group using it today and building campaigns daily. So it's very easy to use, and it activates that data back to all your email tools, all your ad tools, really any marketing tool in your business. So we took the parts that you didn't want to reinvent, the data collection and the data storage pieces, and just gave you the parts that you actually really wanted as a marketer, the segmentation and the activation.
And so what were some of the challenges that marketers would face? I remember implementing Segment ourselves. And then it kind of just sat on the shelf, and we didn't use it a whole lot because it didn't speak well with our existing tools, the tools that we were using in our day-to-day to reach our prospects and our customers. And for the audience, I'm talking from a B2B perspective. Hightouch also powers a lot of the most impressive B2C marketing teams out there. But like, one of the things that we found was like, okay, cool, we have all this data. It's difficult to stitch other data sources into it to make it actionable. What are some of the other challenges that your customers have been finding so far?
Yeah, so it's so many things. I mean, so we do serve both B2B and B2C. And we've seen people that pay over $1 million for segment leave their segment contract to use Hightouch. And the real reason for that is because in this day and age, we have so much data and we want to operate on all of it. So say you have like offline purchases, like an in-store, and you have online purchases. Most data platforms won't be able to see both of those two things, but we can. And so we can help you run campaigns on people that purchased in-store but not online, that kind of stuff. So really, like, being able to stitch together all the data in your company is our specialty. And a really common thing that people say is that, hey, I can send emails to users, but what if I want to send them different emails for different shoes they bought, or different emails for different pets that they have? PetSmart's one of our biggest customers, and you have different birthdays for different pets. Your cat has a different birthday, different pet food, different toys than your dog. And so a traditional marketing tool, a regular like email marketing tool that you use, actually doesn't work, because one user is not one user. You have a cat and a dog. And so the TLDR, the most important thing to take away is that as your business grows, your data is going to get too complex and your marketing tools will all break. And you're going to ask your engineers to hack together stuff to make those marketing tools keep working. And that's where like you should give us a call and help us, and we can help you like think through that together, because we are totally agnostic to what your data looks like. We simply just help you solve marketing problems.
So, I mean, I have my hands on the keyboard. So does Adam in our day-to-days. One of the things that we both share, despite the difference in our functions at the company, is our reluctance to go and ask for the product team or the engineering team to come. Hey, can you plug this in? Can you do this for us? So how does that work in practice? So let's say I have a data set, an object of all of my customers' birthdays, and it's not linked to my warehouse. Kind of, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so we have a very visual interface. Say your email marketing tool is Braze or Iterable. You'll be able to one-click log in with Braze or Iterable. And then in our UI, you'll see the user's object. It'll say, hey, like, here's the user's object in Braze or Iterable, and here's birthday, here's like last logged in, here's last product purchase, etc. And you'll simply be able to visually link those to the data your team has already set up for you. And that can be from the database, it can be from Looker, from Tableau, it can even be from a spreadsheet. And so really, regardless of where that data sits, you can link it up to your email tool, go, and then the rest is really handled for you.
So I have a question. I think your tool is super cool. One thing that I saw, I was on the Google Analytics team for like 7 years, and you do a lot of things that GA could never do. Like you're bringing together, PII of users. Google can't do stuff like that. Obviously, that was always going to be third party. But I'm curious. So you've created this awesome, powerful tool, and now you have a marketing team, right? And within that marketing team, you definitely have people with levels of sophistication with data. How are you thinking about training team members for your super powerful tool? Are you helping them structure, a data practice? Are you helping them just figure out the right questions to even ask of their data? How do you onboard and get them to be like more fluent in using their data?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we always start by asking them, like, what is the number one priority, right? So they'll tell us, this is the kind of personalization I need to do. I need to do multi-channel orchestration, or I need to do like web personalization. Like they'll tell us really like, what is the most important thing that will unlock their business? And starting from that, we will work with their technical teams to prepare the data for them, and then surface it in Hightouch. So like the truth of the world is that no one can really run autonomously, right? Like you have a 30-person marketing team, there's a MarTech person, there's a marketing ops person, there's data. it's really difficult to be fully autonomous. What you want is the best place to collaborate. So you want an easy way for the data team to say, this is the right field for user birthdays. Let me expose this to you. And then you want an easy interface for the marketer to run the ad campaign or the email campaign. So the whole idea is to collaborate between those two teams. And we're always there to help you think through what the campaign should be, what data you need for that campaign. Do you already have that data or not? And then also help you like get that data if you don't have it already. But like oftentimes translating between the data person's language and the marketing person's language is like what makes things work in a company. And that's why like all of our team is very well versed in how to talk to both of those two parties.
Awesome. So are you guys providing, I guess it sounds like you get an account person, like a data specialist on your team, or is that on the client's team, their lead analyst, or is it could be both, it could be either?
Yeah, it's both, but we always provide an account manager. So our whole thing, our company philosophy is that if your implementation is not successful, then we're not successful. And then in this market, I simply can't wait for like 12 months for an implementation to happen, right? I'm going to want that implementation done in 2 months. And so are you as a customer. And that's exactly what we see. We see like the largest of companies implementing the product in less than a few months, which is in everyone's benefit. And then to your point on like skills, right? How do we up-level folks? I think there's like a misnomer. So people will say every marketer should learn SQL. I just totally disagree with that. Like, I don't think people should all go learn SQL. It's a great skill to have. It's super fun. You should learn it if that's what you want to learn. But if you're just trying to get things done, I think marketers should understand like where the right data lives, how to ask their data person for it, and how to make it easy as possible for that data person to help them.
And it seems like your product in particular is biasing to, and I love this, you're biasing people to action. You want people to have data and do something with it. And I think a mistake that I've seen for a lot of data company startups is just a lot of reporting and charts and graphs, things I didn't really know what to do with. Mm-hmm. Even if I was like super sophisticated about like, oh, great, I have all these social listening KPIs, and they're just like, I can say, oh, well, this is reporting success and trend analysis, which is fine, but it really just tells you directionally or binary perspective, things are getting better or worse. Right. A lot of it just isn't super actionable. And it seems like you guys are really focused on building like these actionable blocks of action to take, this input and do this output with it. And you were talking about surfacing particular data points like your pet's birthday instead of throwing the kitchen sink at, it doesn't matter how great of an analyst or marketer you are. If you're given too much information, it's like you're never going to do anything with that either, right?
Right. And on a per user basis. So like what you were just saying really reminded me of like some of the pain our customers feel. So a lot of people that are listening are like, hey, I want to run abandoned cart campaigns. My user added a product to cart. Can I market them that product on Facebook, Google, Snapchat, TikTok, Bing, Reddit, Twitter, whatever? Can I market them that exact SKU, that exact product on all these platforms? That sounds really difficult. On a per user basis, let's take 1 million users. They each viewed something else. You have to run a campaign specific to that SKU to all these users now. You're going to go to your engineering team. Your engineering team is going to say, yes, I can do this for you. I got to write all this code. It's going to take me a couple of months, but we will have autonomous abandoned cart campaigns running for all of our users. That is terrible. That pains me that it will take them 2 months to do that and that they'll have to write code. We see people launching that in the same week with Hightouch. Like they'll call us on a Monday, on a Tuesday, they'll link up their database, and on a Friday, their abandoned cart campaign's running. And there's no code they have to write. It's like very, very simple. So I want to demystify how hard it is to run like programmatic campaigns, like abandoned cart, re-engaging users that are returning, like all that kind of stuff. It's actually a lot easier than you think, but we just haven't been given the tools to do those things.
That's awesome. Chris, can I ask one more question?
Sure, yeah.
So in terms of you guys have, like, it sounds like a lot of companies, like, are you guys over 100 companies, 500 companies?
Yeah, it's around 500.
Nice.
But there's a lot of free customers too on top of that.
So I liked you were talking about like abandoned shopping carts and, maybe running ads across platforms. You have access to a lot of data. And so One question I always like to ask someone sitting in your shoes at a data company is, and I think this is such a great thing to help everyone who's listening, whether they're a user or not. Can you share like some of like the most common, highest impact things that whether a company is using you or someone else that they could do with their data, either for, you know, customer sat or for conversion, or like you mentioned abandoned shopping carts and optimizing that. Could you share a few things that you've seen are just like, wow, every company should do this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start with like the less pie in the sky ones. Like people will do pie in the sky stuff like, let me give you like on-site personalization or like next best offer and like all this like real-timey stuff. A lot of people get immediate ROI by just running suppressions. I want to suppress users that just bought my product. I don't want to wait a week to suppress those users. I want to suppress them immediately after they buy the product. And we've seen our customers save over $1 million a month or $1 million a year just by running suppressions on an hourly basis rather than weekly basis. So there's like one really obvious one. The kinds of campaigns we see are like abandoned carts is a really big one. Being able to do like omni-channel. So can I send more marketing to someone that clicks create bank account, but doesn't actually like fund their bank account? So in the world of like conversions, it's difficult to say like what's a converted user. Is it someone that clicked sign up? Is it someone that actually made their account? Or is it someone that funded their account? And actually in between that, you want to send someone like more emails and more ads. So like those kinds of campaigns where you want to increase marketing when someone is high propensity and then completely turn off marketing when they finish purchasing. I think those are just two of the most common examples of high ROI campaigns that are very easy to run. You have the data for those today. And then lastly, I'll just give you a quick one. I just did a presentation with the VP of Audience Management at cars.com. They saw, I think, a 30% increase in their conversion rate by using better data for their email marketing. So you browse a bunch of cars on cars.com. They want to email you about the cars that you like. You're shopping for pickup trucks. You don't want to see a Toyota Prius. It's really simple. Running that would have taken them months. He like literally was on stage saying this would have taken me months to build. With Hightouch, it took me less than 2 weeks. I launched it. I got 30% increase. And this is like not a small ticket purchase. It's a car. So seeing a 30% increase in conversion from that email campaign is like massive for their business.
I love all those examples. And for the audience, you know, one of those was not spamming your users. So the notion of, I think everyone has purchased something from Amazon and then immediately got remarketed to for more of that thing, right? So not annoying your customers is like a core tenet of marketing. And so using data to do that, I think is super smart. The other thing you mentioned, which I think more companies should do is, you know, the right message at the right moment. So people are busy, right? They might like close their tab window. They might be like, oh crap, I have to hop into a meeting. They might get a phone call and they might forget to finish the purchase path. So you were mentioning, oh, you know, if they got to this step and didn't put in their bank account, it's like reasonable to assume that user meant to finish those steps. So additional touch points there, transactional emails using data or whatever those messages are, text maybe. A friend of mine created a company called Live Recover, where they use text to remind people to finish their abandoned shopping cart on Shopify, and they did amazing business with just that. And then the third one that you mentioned was personalization, right? So I love the idea of, you obviously know someone interested in pickup trucks doesn't want a Prius. So I think those are all like things that a marketing team, if they were to sit around and do a brainstorm, they'd all be really logical, and they're either not doing them right, or maybe don't know how to do them as easily as a product like Hightouch could let them do, and you guys are just letting them get to that a lot faster.
Yeah, and it's the idea of experimentation, right? So the VP of product at Instacart told me this a long time ago. He said, my marketers are very smart. Like, they know exactly what campaigns they want to run. And they're going to run the ones that they are sure are going to work. Because if you're going to have an engineer do 2 months of work, you only want to run the campaigns that are for sure bringing ROI. But what about all the campaigns you're not sure about? You're not going to experiment with them because you're not going to spend the 2 months of work to run that experiment. And so his value add was, hey, like, if I have this product, I can run experiments all day. It's going to take me like an hour to run an experiment. If it doesn't work, no worries. And so when you can experiment with all these other things that you wouldn't run otherwise, like maybe you run a abandoned cart based on like something more abstract than just the product they view, right? Like maybe there's something different that you try there. That ability for a marketer to experiment without waiting on a technical person really unlocks what marketing can try. And then they can try more granular stuff, like maybe I try by zip code or by city rather than just by like by age or gender. There's all these different things you'll try when you can experiment faster. And that's the unlock. One thing I'll quickly add, because Adam mentioned this before, is that like he mentioned that we see a lot of data. The truth is that we actually don't see any data. We see a lot of data use cases, a lot of marketing teams. Like we probably talk to like 100 marketing teams a week about their use cases. But the reason they're able to adopt our product so quickly is because our product does not see any of that data. It's in their database, their marketing tool, and it just passes through us. So like fintech and healthcare companies, we're HIPAA compliant. Like they use us all the time. They pass InfoSec for us in like less than a week. And it's because like I can't see that data. Like I literally could not see it if I tried.
You beat me to the punch, Kashish. I was literally just about to go on. Okay, what does this mean for, you know, protected industries that have sensitive information? How does privacy come into that, play into that picture? So can we backtrack away from the privacy conversation? There's one more thing that I wanted to ask about, you know, where Hightouch and the data activation layer fits into the stack, because I imagine that some of our audience will want to go try to assemble these things on their own accord or in their own organizations. So I, from the most current like product marketing stuff I've seen, is like the new stack is what you're calling a composable CDP. Can you kind of touch on that and maybe highlight the, you know, the 3 layers that kind of fit into that bucket and how you think about it?
Sure. Yeah. So the composable CDP, it might sound complex, but the whole idea behind it was it's the CDP that works on stuff you already have. It's the easiest to set up CDP, and it will work regardless of the setup at your company. So regardless of whether you have this database or that database, it doesn't really matter. You bring your own data, you bring your own stack, and the composable CDP will adapt to that stack. So the traditional stack was something to collect or ingest data, something to store data, and then something to like analyze and activate that data. What we built is the third piece, the purpose-built segmentation and activation engine. And the majority of larger companies don't want us to solve the ingestion and storage piece. They have hundreds of people on their data and IT teams solving that piece already. And so, yeah, the very simple way to put it is it just works with whatever you have today. And you don't have to worry about what you have today. It's not, you don't have to go ask your data person, do we have Snowflake or BigQuery or Redshift? But fundamentally, if you have data, you as a marketer should get access to it. And that's what we are here to help with.
So basically, just to summarize, you're taking the web server event stuff, the events are getting dumped into a data collection bucket. I imagine there's some sort of ETL that pulls in stuff like a Fivetran, and then that gets housed in a data warehouse, and then that's where Hightouch and the data activation layer comes in, correct?
That's exactly right. But we're really trying to move away from this idea that you need to buy like 3 things to make this thing work. Because we're learning as we have progressed in the market that like, even if you don't have Fivetran, you probably still have data in the database. And it might even just be like a Shopify database or something else. And so really it's like, as long as you have data and someone in your company knows where that data is, then you should be able to use a composable CDP and get off the ground in like days or weeks rather than in months.
Okay, great. Thank you. Adam, do we want to hop back into privacy, or where do we want to go next with Kashish?
No, let's, I mean, we need a whole podcast dedicated to data privacy. And I think everyone is tired of where everyone's burnt out on GDPR. Everyone's burnt out on, you know, just the whole mess of what has happened with Facebook and Apple and everything else. I think like we'll do another podcast on it, but it's been like so beaten to death. I don't think it's like the interesting thing for marketers. I think marketers want to be excited again about cool creative tactics and programs. And I think one really interesting thing about a tool like Hightouch, where you're saying, you know, you could be using this in days or weeks, not months, is I think is a bright spot for especially large enterprises where, you know, there can be seeming like onboarding that takes forever and you have to free up tons of end resource and marketers have to beg to get in the queue of anything because it's always the lowest priority, even though it's something that generates return for the company. So yeah, I think anything that speeds up the process of getting from data to decision is something every marketer is probably pretty excited about.
Yeah, so I won't talk about privacy, but the thing I will add there is where is the golden, like, can I reach out to this customer or can I not reach out to this customer? It unfortunately might not be in your ESP. Maybe they emailed like your privacy team and said, unsubscribe me, I want you to delete my records. So unfortunately, like, we can't simply operate in a world where like if they've unsubscribed from an email, we don't reach them. There has to be like a golden record for like, can I reach out to this customer or not? And so like one of the reasons why people get a lot of comfort out of using a tool like Hightouch, which is based on like their data team's source of truth for can I reach out to this person or not, is because they know if they use that source of truth that they're listening to their VP of data or their like CIO, and their CIO is not going to ask them every single day, like, are you hitting GDPR like compliant customers or not? It's just kind of taken care of because it's on the data team. And as you mentioned, the data team cares about that. They're the team that is mitigating risk. But as a marketing team, I just want to get stuff done. So that's the kind of the right delegation of responsibilities.
So cool. I want to kind of hop into a different conversation point and talk about advertising. Obviously, our podcast name is Madvertising, and a lot of our audience is on the growth or performance marketing side. And like some of this is just so fascinating, and I'd love to get a sense of like what are some of the results that like let's say that, you know, you're a D2C. You get your data wrangled and managed and actionable, finally, and hopefully with not too much of a headache. What can people reasonably expect in terms of piping in, like, you know, their custom audiences into some of their advertising channels? Because I know that that's like the next battleground is audiences. We're seeing a lot of saturation in the walled gardens. So kind of like how are people using this to inform their ad campaigns? Yeah,
totally. So the easy piece is like I have some sort of personalization I want to run for my walled garden ads. Walled gardens are usually the Facebooks, Google, Snapchat, TikToks of the world. And so I'll upload my user list and I'll say, hey, like, here's all my users that are in a specific geography or like a specific type of product. Maybe they like suitcases instead of handbags. So I want to market them suitcases, and then you'll have Facebook or Google spend dollars to market them suitcases. What we've seen people do these days is switch over to more programmatic platforms like Trade Desk, Criteo, or like other worldwide web advertising platforms. Because they've seen that the walled garden efficacy has gone down slightly, but programmatic ad efficacy has gone up. What we also see people do is get data into things like display video. So can I do offline advertising only to people in the right zip code for a product where they can buy that in store nearby? And so like with kind of like walled garden efficacy being questionable, like we've really seen people utilize their own first party data in many ways, whether it's like walled garden, programmatic, or display video. And we support all three of those agnostically. So the one thing you cannot do in any of those advertising platforms is segment your data based on first party information. So you can't segment it out by like people that viewed this color or this type of product or logged in within the last 30 days. All you can do is segment it based on third party data they have, like demographics. And so that's kind of the reason why our customers want segmentation on their first party data, so they can personalize based on that and then send that information over to Facebook and Google. And one thing that we do pretty often too is we help you sync your product catalogs to Facebook and Google. That way your Facebook, Google has like the right picture for your product, the right name, the right price tag. and you're not manually uploading the product catalog once a week. So both of those in tandem.
And this goes back to that story where you're like, you got 1 million customers, they just bought the product, put the suppression list on, or hey, abandoned cart, you have this pair of Jordan sneakers in your cart. That's kind of what you're describing, right?
Exactly. And like the where it gets complex is like maybe this person is viewing multiple things, or they're interacting with multiple of my brands. Maybe I own Air Jordan and I own like another brand. So I might want to differentiate between like which one costs more money, I'll advertise on that, or which one do they view more often, I'll send them that.
So in terms of advertising, can you share some fun stories? For example, have you seen things like advertising using like weather data to see if you could sell more umbrellas to people when it's raining outside? Kind of cool things that people have experimented with that might be interesting to inspire others.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. So the Instacart of India, because they know when their users log onto their app, on a per user basis, they send them push notifications at the right time of day. So like it's all programmatic, but like their data science team is pretty spectacular. They know that X user is usually online like 5 to 7 p.m. Let me send them a notification to buy eggs and bananas between 5 to 7 p.m. So just like what Chris said, right time, right place, right messaging, that's how they find the right time, because they kind of know when their users are usually logging in. Another example I'll give is one of the large music labels. Music is a cool industry because you have people buying concert tickets, you have them visiting your online websites, and you have them streaming music on platforms you don't own, like Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal. And so oftentimes these music labels will be sent information from Spotify and Apple Music. It's in their database, and they'll know that, all right, X person listened to these artists on Spotify. And based on that, they'll decide what to market that person in terms of concert tickets or swag. And so it's pretty complex because let's say I develop a profile for my customer. I know they like to listen to rap and R&B. Now, I'll select them concerts that are in their zip code that are happening in the next 60 to 90 days that are rap and R&B. And that's how I'll advertise that person or email that person. That's like insanely complex. And the only way to do that is to stitch together that Spotify data with their past concert ticket purchases, with their location and upcoming concerts in your database. So like they'll like really go the 9 yards to make it so that the things I'm seeing ads for are R&B in San Francisco and like coming up soon, so I can actually buy those tickets. And this stuff works. Another AXS is one of the largest ticket sellers. They own Coachella, like they're one of our customers. And I don't know if they're doing the Spotify stuff specifically, but they do really cool personalization in order to be able to show you the right concert ticket at the right time.
Those are some really cool examples. I'm curious in terms of personalized marketing. Do you see brands doing things where they have like a template that's like consistent brand for everyone, and they sort of fill in the gaps for users, so there's that marketing consistency? Because they're like the brand manager in me gets anxious when we get so personalized that it's like, now I've abstracted away the things that make me special, and now I'm just like almost pure commodity, right? And like I think there's some risk there, but I assume there's some risk mitigation with having the right templates and having like the right tools to basically ensure that you're not like fully abstracting away like my brand essence, right?
Definitely, yeah. And truthfully, we don't control any of the actual copy or images that they send advertising for. So like this is where like your ad platform or your email platform is the right place to build those templates. We simply empower you as a marketer with data. So if you imagine like there's like a blank in that template where it says like, here's what we should show the customer, we just fill that part in, but everything else is yours, and each customer uses it very differently.
Yeah. I mean, my only concern from a brand perspective is, and I think you'd agree here, is a hybrid of more broad awareness tactics, whether that's streaming or out of home, or, you know, because you want to cast a wide net, so that way you do have people further down the funnel that, become customers, and that you can have enough information to give them really relevant personalized ads. But you can't do that unless they know who you are and come into your company's halo of marketing in the first place.
Yeah, and I would love your feedback here. Like, what I often see people doing is, say someone enters their funnel, they'll subscribe them to like a general brand campaign, and then they'll add on personalized campaigns on top of that. But that doesn't mean they'll turn off the general brand campaign.
I think Apple, quintessential example of great marketing. They do a pretty good job of. I feel like I get like the broad inspirational messages, and then they give me some good personalized messages. Google's probably pretty good there too. They have pretty big email team there, and it's like I get not only just like the specific ones about updates, but then I get like really specific things like upgrade my storage, or like here's a relevant offer for me for Google Play or something like that. I think that the tech companies do probably a better job still than a lot of the non-tech companies of thinking through all this.
I agree. And one trend I see very consistently is that commerce used to be my user buys one thing from me, and that's like the user journey. They bought it, I'm done. And that is increasingly less common. Like you have D2C, the user buys once, now they have a subscription, now they're going to buy every single month. Or they buy one product from me, well, I'm going to sell them another one afterwards. Or I own multiple brands, so I can sell them cross-brand. And because that user journey doesn't just end at purchase, it actually begins at purchase and then ends when they buy and consistently interact with that brand. That's where like data is useful for B2C companies the exact same way it is for tech companies. So tech companies like Google and Apple, just like you mentioned, they care about it so much because they have you as a user and they want to sell you more stuff over time. The average B2C company is doing that too now. Like the record labels of the world want to sell you more tickets over time, more swag over time. And it's all repeat purchases. Especially in this market, people are spending more time on repeat purchasers than they are on net new user acquisition.
So I'm gonna ask you the annoying question that everyone asks you in every call. When, and maybe this already exists, when do I get AI in Hightouch to say, tell me what I need to do to increase sales by 5% in the next quarter? Like questions like that. Are we there yet? Is it getting closer? Like crazy things where I could be really specific and put in my marketing OKRs and have you give me back a task list to do, right?
Yeah, I think we're getting close. I'll give you an example of like the stuff that we're getting close to, and then I'll keep my mouth shut for the rest. But imagine I have all my purchases and I'm just like, hey, tell me why these users are buying. What data do I have in my business that tells me that this user was going to buy, and what patterns do you see? That would have taken like a marketer a very long time to figure out. Like, oh, users are buying because they're learning about us from this source, or they're interested in this new product because of this video that they watched. Those kinds of questions are very difficult to ask. But I think AI will be spectacular at like answering those questions because regression is not that difficult from a data perspective.
Yeah. Before we used to have to like pull in a data science team, right? Run a multivariate Bayesian thing, start, do it for me, please.
Exactly. And like the beauty is that we can just test every variable against each other and just tell you which ones are the most like correlated, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of like questions you can ask AI, like, hey, like, tell me what's most significant here, or cohort my users in a way that gives me like a way to personalize against them. So things that are like operating on data. Asking things like, how do I increase revenue by 5%? I don't know what kind of answer you're going to get. So I cannot promise things like that. But like, there are pretty awesome companies, like partners of ours, where you can say like, show me which users are most likely to buy in the next 30 days. And they'll tell you, I've stack ranked your user base by here at the top, like the ones that are most likely to buy. And this like 30% is probably going to buy in the next 30 days and go spend more money on them. So I think that's coming very soon.
So finding the discriminant variable that leads itself to the outcome that you really want.
Right. And then I don't know how much y'all know about like transformers and like kind of like the most like modern models we have today. They may not be able to tell you which variable was important. It might say, here's the 30% of users that are most likely to buy. I cannot tell you why. There's too many variables I've computed and like things I've analyzed to actually tell you why this is correct, but it is. And so like the way like kind of like OpenAI is moving is a little bit more black boxy than traditional machine learning, but it's proven to be more accurate than traditional machine learning.
The AI doomers aren't going to like the black box thing.
No, they're not. No, I'm not going to like the black box. It's AI, but that's surprisingly what is working well. And therefore, you can't ask the model what was most significant about the data.
Where else do you think there's going to be alpha? Is it going to be in the form of like shipping playbooks across departments at different organizations? So like, let's say I'm a pet food store company, and then I'm taking some of the playbooks or some of the playbooks that the AI identifies working well for the pet store maybe gets applied to a different vertical or a different product category. What does that look like, do you think?
This might be hopeful, but I think there will be cases where like we can train computers to like run the campaign for us. And so what I mean by that is like if it sees a similar pattern as the pet store company in a different part of the business, it can identify that and actually like, propose that pattern. So a bit more proactive. Like you are seeing things like Auto GPT where it can press the buttons for you and like actually run the thing for you. So it's actually practical to do that. The question is whether we want it to do that. And I think there's alpha there as long as you kind of constrain what it can do. So like if we say like, write me something that figures out users abandoning cart. I have no idea what that query looks like, but just I'm going to trust that you're going to figure out what abandoned carts looks like. And I'm going to trust that you can tell me what SKUs those people viewed. And I'll send that to my ad tool. Like that level of instruction, I think is probably the right place.
Wow. So I'm thinking about this, like looking with a long-term lens, you know, what happens to the marketing teams that adopt the data activation, the AIs versus those that don't? You know, what are you starting? What do you think will happen?
Yeah. So, I'll give you the data activation piece. Like that one's the most obvious. Your marketing will look generic. So it will look the same for all your users. It will be lower conversion, and it just won't be as exciting as, for example, I buy hexagonal glasses. How did I find hexagonal glasses? I Googled them one day because I was like, damn, like this would be cool. I looked at a couple products, and then for months, I just kept seeing ads for hexagonal glasses until I eventually bought them. Like that's not normal. Like I wouldn't have done that usually, but it's because the marketing was so on point. And it showed me exactly what I wanted. I didn't see anything other than this kind of glasses. That's like a user journey.
10.4 exposures is what we figured out at Google was to get you to convert for something like that. So you do need to touch a user a bunch of times.
Yeah. See, that kind
Hopefully
of
not annoy them. Hopefully not annoy them.
Which is the tough part, right? It's like, how do I show them stuff they actually want to see and not a bunch of generic stuff? And I think that's where like the data activation piece is really important. I can't comment on AI. Also, like, don't take this as like Hightouch is building AI. Like, we don't know yet. So there's not like a roadmap in sight yet for how we're going to play there. But I do think it's just exciting because the same questions you might have had to ask a data person or wait like weeks or months to get an answer to, you might be able to ask that question very soon to an AI model that has access to all your data.
Wow. So it sounds like basically get your stack in order, get everything talking to one another, send it to all your destinations, and really start moving towards that finish line of having that ultimate personalized marketing campaign. I think that's going to be what the future holds, and everything else is going to kind of fall upon deaf ears, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's the most important piece, and I think the reason a lot of our marketers love doing things on data rather than kind of just broad brand campaigns is because you can say like, all right, I know exactly which user converted through which campaign. Or you can say I spent $100,000 and I got out $150,000. So the attribution and the ROI are just like a lot more clear versus broader campaigns.
This is going to be exciting. When we go offline, I can't wait to pick your brain on how we just launched audiences for AdQuick. So basically any first or third party audience, layer it onto the map. You find the inventory that is best suited for the target demo that you have in the audience. And I'm excited to try some of these larger brands that have, millions of customers, millions of data points, and identifying clusters of prospective customers. And since the walled gardens are becoming more saturated, more difficult, more expensive, less transparent, I'm excited to get some of this type of data layered onto the AdQuick map, kind of saying, okay, let's see if we could influence purchase decisions out in the real world, not just on screens and laptops.
I love that. Yeah. And I think we already have this, but we integrate with AdQuick, and we want to make it as easy as possible for anyone to get data into AdQuick. That way, just like Chris said, like you see how many users you have in that geography. You see how many of them purchased in the last few weeks. Like, I mean, like we have like marketing teams that will say, before I run this campaign, I want to make sure the product is in stock in your store. If it's not in stock in your store, I don't want to run the campaign. So that's the same thing, right? It's like, do I want to buy the billboard if you don't live in that area? No.
Absolutely. And that's something that we encountered. Part of the reason why we built that audiences thing was we were talking to one of the, it's a large haircut service provider. And they're like, this was in the middle of the pandemic. They're like, oh, we had all this marketing budget slated for these campaigns, but we can't service the client because pandemic, right? So that was their on and off switch as to whether they went forward with it, whether they could fulfill it or not. And that should be a very obvious thing to include in your marketing campaign. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to that, Adam?
No, not that in particular. I was just thinking while you both were talking, for a CMO or like a senior marketer listening to you both, my main question would probably be and either one of you can answer this, how would I find a Chris or a Cash for my marketing team that even knows what the right questions of my data to ask are, let alone build my MarTech stack in the right way? Because I still think that is probably even more of a challenge. All the things that you can do are amazing. I think there's still leaders who don't know how to build a team that's super facile in all this. So any tips you could give for like a senior person would I think be interesting takeaways for this audience too.
Chris, you got anything?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. And no, I'll defer to Cash as I haven't worked with nearly enough marketers that have that data acumen. So I would love to see what kind of people you're talking to on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I guess we're lucky because we do see some of the most modern MarTech folks. And truly, like what they talk about is the convergence of marketing and data. Oftentimes they say that it's impossible for a marketer to do their job without understanding data. And so it might be a more controversial take here, but I actually think that the majority of good MarTech leaders today are already pretty well versed in data and asking for what they want. And it's really about like helping bring the data team into the picture to collaborate with that head of MarTech. And so if you're interviewing like a head of MarTech or like a director of MarTech, and you're asking them questions like, how did you use customer data platforms in the past? What data warehouse have you used in the past? And like, what are you doing to collaborate with the data team better at your past companies? I think those are some great questions, because as soon as they start talking about like, as soon as they start like lone wolfing it, it's a bit tough. But if they have a really good idea for how to collaborate with the data team, I think it's a very clear path to success.
Okay. And are there any favorite channels that you find people? Conferences, LinkedIn, Twitter? Like if I'm listening to this and I wanted to, build out my data team, like what have you found is like the best place to find really nerdy, savvy marketers these days?
Yeah. So Juan Mendoza has a podcast called the Martech Podcast and a newsletter. His is excellent. Scott Brinker as well does MarTech writing, also excellent. So I think those are two of the people I trust the most. And honestly, I'm searching for like a community where people are like talking day and night about this kind of stuff. So would love your ideas there.
Yeah, I mean, Scott's great. I mean, I remember when his Lumascape was like, had maybe 100 logos on it, and now it's like 6,000 or something like that. I know Lenny from the product manager from Airbnb has a pretty solid community, but that's geared towards products. So maybe we should just join forces and start our own data obsessed marketers community. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, that sounds great. I have found personally that the really good data-driven marketers are nearly impossible to hire for a number of reasons. One is they're very well appreciated and taken care of. And the other is they're at a company where they're earning equity and they're not going to leave. But I find, you can, I actually, if I were looking, and now I can actually say to do this, I couldn't say when I was at Google, is stock the list of the 450-ish Google Analytics certified partners. Google actually lists them on the site and like find their junior account people and you could poach them. I did poach one of them, not under NDA, for a team previously, and he's great. So that's what I would do. I was just curious if, I like the idea of looking at someone like Scott's network. I think that's pretty smart too. I do think that there is still a bridge that needs to be crossed of talent. I think that a lot of marketers don't know what like a p-value is. They don't understand statistical significance. They're like, well, this tool told me to do this, or I saw someone with a bunch of followers on X platform, so they must be important. Like there's a lot of that still. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there's marketing teams who hire like X people who worked in like a lab working on cancer research, or we're working at like one of the casino companies. Those people are crazy good with data. And like there is a bridge between the marketer. Someone like Chris is super rare where he understands great marketing and data, and they're kind of unicorns. There's kind of few of them, but it's great that you're seeing more. I tend to think all marketers are sort of biased to right brain, and almost no one's in the middle. Like they have to work at the other side. And I think that's okay. I think it's good to have a team of people who make up strengths and weaknesses and kind of work together on things.
Yeah. One thing I'll add there is the consultants are starting to take note. So the solutions partners, like all the big consulting firms, are actually pretty well versed in composable CDP now. And in the data stack and modern marketing stack, like kind of converging. So like, I think the majority of big brands have at least one or two consulting partners where they'll ask these big tech questions, like what should I do? How should I do it? And it's no longer the same answer, like use Adobe, use Salesforce. It actually is like a lot more similar to the kind of stuff that we're talking about here.
So is that where you get is that where Hightouch's deal flow comes from?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But the point is, like, we're not talking about like astrophysics here. This stuff is like here now and it's ready to go. Like very large traditional companies are adopting this kind of stuff. There's like other names I can't talk about like online, but like the most traditional of companies are adopting this kind of stack. So there's no one that can really say, no, I'm not ready for it. And almost every single MarTech person we know is taking note of the idea of composable, because it's kind of too good to ignore.
You actually should get the casino clients, because they're doing, they use data to determine price elasticity of table games at hour of day. So they know when to raise the table from, $10 to $20 limit at blackjack and not like lose the minimum amount of business. Like that industry might be more data driven than tech.
So Adam, how come you know so much about the gambling industry?
So I met the director of BI at Caesars when I was sitting at a poker table in Vegas while at a data conference, and I was working at Google then, and I think everyone else at that table like didn't want to play anymore after they found out there's people who work at Caesars and Google at the table that are there for a data conference, because why would they? But yeah, I got a tour of Caesars BI team, and the cool part is they're in the casino in like, you go down and it's like in a nondescript office. It's got like, it's not like a tech company where there's like, these big ceilings and, pastel colors on the wall. It's like this office with like 10-foot ceilings and very like, boring cubes and stuff, but they are making they make good money for the casinos. I think it's a different vibe.
That's hilarious. Like you're able to multitask that trip pretty well.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, what's up?
I was going to say Vegas trips are usually that way, right?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for your time, Kashish. I think this is a good stopping point. We're coming up on an hour, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to shill whatever you'd like to shill. Where can people find you? How can people find you on the internet and learn from you? Because obviously you have a lot of knowledge to share with the rest of us. Where can people find you?
Yeah, easiest way is find me on LinkedIn. It's just Kashish with Hightouch, or email me at kashish@hightouch.com. So super simple, like really, really happy to help anyone think through this kind of stuff. You don't have to buy the Hightouch product. You don't even have to use it. Like just ping us and we are very happy to help answer your questions about data or marketing and learn from you. So like everyone here has a unique scenario where they want to run their marketing. We always love learning from those use cases and we love sharing back what we've learned too. So just think of it as like a consultant until we become more formally engaged. Really happy to work together in that way. And I'm generally pretty good at responding to like LinkedIn and email. So really happy, really excited to hear from everyone.
Cool. Adam, anything else you'd like to add?
No, this was awesome. And I'm now super excited to go play with Hightouch and see what insights that we'll have. So
awesome. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks again. And if you liked what you heard today, pound the subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you again. Bye-bye.